I'm going to show you how to play Retribution Paladin for both Mythic Plus and Raiding with no information overload for beginners in Season 4 of Dragonflight. We're going to start off with the stat priority, and something that I always say is that eye level is king here. Don't worry too much, especially as a beginner, about the secondary stats. So strength and a higher eye level is always going to be your top priority. If we would like to look at the secondary stats, however, this is the priority that you should generally follow. Simulating your character is always going to be beneficial, however, if you are looking into it. Haste, then versatility, then crit, and then mastery. Haste is going to make your cycle and rotation a lot shorter, as it will reduce your global cooldowns. Versatility, increasing damage done and reducing damage taken. Critical strike, of course, increasing the chance that you deal double damage. And lastly, mastery. This is going to increase your damage done in the form of your holy damage. We are Retribution Paladin, and we are holy as they come, after all. For the talents, this build on the left is for raiding and single target, and then the one on the right is for Mythic Plus and AoE. I will put these in the description below so you can import them straight into your game. What I'm not going to do, however, right now is talk through every individual talent. As I said, this is a beginner guide. But don't worry, I've got you covered. In the rotation, we're going to go through all of the core abilities and talents that we need to be aware of. Before we do that, though, I want to show you some of the really exciting cooldowns and utilities we have in our toolkit as a Retribution Paladin. These are some of the biggest and most exciting ones we have. And the same with the talents. I advise that once you're more comfortable with your rotation and role, that you maybe look through your spellbook and talents at all of the individual spells and talents you have. First things first, let's get you comfortable with playing the core rotation and the core cooldown. So starting from in fact, all of these on this screen are defensive ones. We've got the Blessing of Sacrifice, reducing a party member's damage taken, but we take it instead. Divine Shield, giving you personal immunity. On the bottom on the right, Divine Protection, reducing all damage taken by 30%, and Lay on Hands, a firm favourite, heals a friendly target for 100% of your health. We then have some really cool utilities. Divine Steed, you can actually jump onto a horse in combat and whiz around as fast as you want. You can use this twice, you have 2 charges of this, and it's a movement speed increase. There's different auras that we can use. Top right here, there's a little aura bar you're going to get in game. We're going to go through these in the rotation. Rebuke. Now, this is your interrupt or kick. If you've heard people using the word kick, it basically means that when you're attacking an enemy, you can interrupt their spellcasting. And for Retribution Paladins, Rebuke is our interrupt or kick. The reason people use the word kick is because rogues, their interrupt is called kick, and it kind of just ended up sticking really on the whole genre of WoW. Intercession is a battle res. You may or may not be aware as a beginner that normally outside of combat, healers and certain classes can resurrect people rather than running back from a graveyard. Well, some classes can also have a battle res to resurrect in battle, usually on a 10-minute cooldown. There's a few classes, druids, death knights, paladins, obviously, and intercession is hours. Blessing of Freedom, granting movement, impairing immunity to an ally, is another utility that we have. Now for the exciting bit, let's actually jump into game and see how we're going to put it all together into a rotation, starting off with single target. First things first though, yes, I know my UI looks fantastic. It is from an add-on called Elv UI. If you would like this, you can join my Patreon where I can help you import the entire UI, excluding this huge bar across the screen, of course, if you would like it. That also supports the channel. I only do this in my spare time after my 9 to 5, not a full-time YouTuber, so Patreon subscribers, etc. It really does help support the channel. You get a lot of behind-the-scenes content and also a private Discord channel as well, just the Patreon. So if you do like the UI, you can import it via the Patreon. And one thing you will notice on here is this. You can't click these. This is a weak aura by Luxfos, and it's a way of grouping visually a lot of your cooldowns and resources into the center of the screen, so it's just a lot more kind of in your eyes view. In your eyes view? You know what I mean. And regarding what we have then as a paladin, we're going to use mana. You don't need to worry about running out of mana as a Ret paladin. It's a bit different to holy. And we have something else called holy power. If I use a spell here, you can see I've now got 2 out of 5 holy power. And then if I use a different one, we've suddenly got 3. And then 4, 5, boom, we've now got 5 holy power. So some abilities are going to be generating holy power, and some abilities are going to spend holy power. The general rule and consensus is that we don't want to overcap our holy power. And therefore, knowing how much each one generates is quite important to the rotation. So let's have a look at the spells we've got before we actually go then into how we're going to cycle them into a rotation. We've first of all got Avenging Wrath. This is a 1-minute cooldown ability, calling upon the light to become an avatar of Retribution, allowing Hammer of Wrath, this is this one at the end here that's greyed out, allowing it to be used on any target, increasing your damage, healing and critical strike chance by 20%. Now, Hammer of Wrath, let's go to the end and talk about that, seeming we're already on the topic, generates 1 holy power. Hurling a divine hammer that strikes an enemy for holy strike damage, only usable on enemies that have less than 20% health, or during Avenging Wrath, and it generates 1 holy power. So usually then, you can only use this ability when the enemy has 20% health or lower, but when you activate Avenging Wrath, which gives you the beautiful Retribution angel wings, you can then use it while that is active as well. The next spell has actually changed because I was in Mythic Plus, but that's fine. The 2 spells we've spoken about, still relevant, if you just noticed the action bar has changed. The next spell is Execution Sentence. A hammer slowly falls from the sky, and I can show you on the target dummy. Here it is, falling from the sky, about to bonk him on the head. And after 12 seconds, they suffer 30% of the damage taken from your abilities during it. So basically, while it's falling and you're doing all the damage, when it hits, it's going to actually deal 30% of the damage that you've done throughout that 12-second duration as it's been falling. So it won't do any damage, If you just don't do anything, it won't really do anything. If you're doing loads of damage in that falling duration, when it hits, it will then deal 30% of that damage that you've been doing in that duration, if that makes sense. The next one we have here is Final Verdict, and this is going to be a spell that is spending holy power, 4 or 5 holy power, unleashing a powerful weapon strike that deals holy damage to an enemy target. Final Verdict has a 15% chance to reset the cooldown on Hammer of Wrath and make it usable on any target regardless of their health. Again, this is the one at the end here again. Then we've got Wake of Ashes. Lash out at your enemies, dealing radiant damage to all enemies within 14 yards in front of you, reducing their movement speed and burning them over 9 seconds. Demons and undead enemies are stunned as well. This generates 3 holy power. We've then got the Blade of Justice. You can see it's putting consecration on the ground, which is what all that holy stuff on the ground is. Pierce an enemy with a Blade of Light dealing damage, generates 1 holy power. We have 2 charges of this. Divine Toll, instantly cast Judgment on up to 5 targets within 30 yards, and after we cast Divine Toll, as you can see that I've just done it, we're going to then cast Judgment again and again. What is Judgment, you may ask? It's this next spell here. Judges the enemy dealing damage and causing them to take 35 increased damage from your next holy power ability, and this also generates 2 holy power. So, going into the single target rotation, we're going to start off by putting up our Avenging Wrath and keeping this on cooldown. We're then going to use Execution Sentence, and then if we have 5 holy power, we're going to use our Final Verdict. At 2 or less holy power, we're going to use Wake of Ashes. You can see here we've actually currently got 3 holy power, so we don't want to use our Wake of Ashes. Why? Because remember, Wake of Ashes is going to generate 3 holy power. So we've only got 2 remaining kind of slots left, meaning we're going to overcap by 1 and therefore waste 1, which is something we don't want to do. The next thing on our priority list is Blade of Justice, and you can see over here this is going to put expurgation onto the target. We want to keep this buff up at all times, and I can put it up again here. You can see it's going to suffer damage over a few seconds, and again we have 2 charges of Blade of Justice. We want to keep up that debuff on the target at all times. We want to cast our Divine Toll. Oh, and here we go. We can go back now and use our Final Verdict because we've got enough holy power to spend it on. Remember, this isn't a rotation but a priority list. After that, we're going to use Judgment. And then after that, we're going to be using Hammer of Wrath if we have 3 or less holy power. Of course, if we can, because it's active or because the target is at low health. So looking at this then, we've got 5 holy power. So we're going to use our Avenging Wrath and our Execution Sentence, spending that holy power Final Verdict, then using our Wake of Ashes and 1 Blade of Justice, again then using our Final Verdict to again spending that holy power. You can see the dot has dropped off, so we're going to use our Blade of Justice again to keep it up, using our Judgment and our Hammer of Wrath, again using our Final Verdict to spend that holy power, using our Blade of Justice, using our Judgment. We're at 4, we've got nothing else to press, so we're going to use our Final Verdict at 4 there, which is our last priority. If you have got nothing else to press and it's at 4, you could still use Final Verdict, because it does require 4 or more. So we try and use it at 5, but if we've only got 4 and there is literally nothing else to press, then we can use it. Again, using Execution Sentence, using Wake of Ashes, using Blade of Justice, Divine Toll, Final Verdict to spend the Holy Power, Judgment, and again, it's quite a simple rotation. You can start to see how it's kind of coming together. And that really is it. Let's just recap it one more time. We're going to go in using our Avenging Wrath on cooldown. We're going to spend our Final Verdict. Well, we're going to use our Execution Sentence to get the hammer coming down. Let's just wait that one out. We're going to get that down, and then we're at 5 Holy Power, so we can use our Final Verdict. We then have hardly any Holy Power, so we can use our Wake of Ashes. Remember, it's generating 3. Use one more and getting that dot up from Blade of Justice. Again, then at 5, using our Final Verdict. Going back, the dots come off. We're going to use our Blade of Justice again, and Divine Toll is on cooldown, so we're going to use our Judgment. Got nothing else to press, and it's at 4, so we can use our Final Verdict again. Again, keeping the dot up, using our Judgment. At this point, we can then use our Execution Sentence again, and Blade of Justice, Divine Toll, Final Verdict, Judgment. It's actually a really fun rotation, if I'm honest. And that is literally it. Let's now look at Mythic Plus and how we're going to change the talent tree and rotation for that, and therefore AoE. If we go into the Mythic Plus talent build, you can see here the ones that are changing over, and really the rotation itself isn't really changing much. One thing to notice is Blessing of Protection here. I didn't talk about this in the cooldowns phase because I wanted to show you that we're only adding it here in the Mythic Plus talent tree. Blessing of Protection blesses a party or raid member, granting immunity to physical damage. Cannot be used on a target forbearance, and it does also cause forbearance. Spells like our Lay on Hands also cause forbearance. That's the one where you heal your target for 100% of your health. Now, do not use this on a tank because it will actually delete all threat, meaning the target will no longer attack the tank and it will go on to other people. So you may think you're trying to help, but you're not. Another thing we get here that we're going to be using is Divine Storm. It uses 3 Holy Power, unleashes a whirl of divine energy, dealing damage to all enemies nearby. So as you can see, the rotation hasn't changed much, taking out these 3 here. Hasn't really changed much. We're adding in here Final Reckoning, which basically you can place. You can see here. Oh god, that is one big Final Reckoning. Cooldown a blast of heavenly energy, dealing damage to all targets in the target area and causing them to take 30% increased damage from your Holy Power ability for 12 seconds. Use that on cooldown. Rather than, can't remember the name of it now, Templar's Verdict, which was the one here, we're using Divine Storm instead now, unleashing a whirl of divine energy. I'm just going to get some Holy Power so we can see it. Unleash a whirl of divine energy, dealing radiant damage to all nearby enemies. So it's basically an AoE version of your Templar's Verdict instead, hence the AoE and Mythic Plus build here. Apart from that, we're not really changing anything in the rotation. You're still then going to use your Wake of Ashes, your Blade of Justice, which is going to put Consecration on the ground, do AoE damage anyway, and your Judgment, etc. in the same way that you were before. A few other talents here, Searing Light. Your abilities that deal radiant damage have a chance to call down an explosion of Holy Fire, dealing damage to everyone nearby and leaving a consecration in its wake. That's what that is on the ground, remember? So there's more AoE damage passively coming in there. And then Divine Storm, that's the AoE one I just showed you. Divine Hammer and Consecration now deal radiant damage, and your abilities that deal radiant damage are increased by 5% as well. Really, a lot of the talents here are quite self-explanatory. I would say to go through them, but if you follow this rotation, you're going to be Gucci for Season 4 of Dragonflight. One last thing is let's have a quick look at what the actual set bonus does in this season. So we can see here the 2 set bonus. This is on Wowhead. The Expurgation, which is from your Blade of Justice, that's the damage over time that you're putting onto your target from Blade of Justice, remember? That's going to last an additional 3 seconds and deal 30% increased damage. Casting your Judgment or Divine Toll, both of these do cast Judgment, remember, on a target with Expurgation. Remember I said to keep it up at all times? This is why. It's going to cause Wrathful Sanction. Condemn an expurgated enemy, dealing attack 100% of attack power, holy damage to your target, and holy damage up to 4 nearby enemies too. Great in single target and Mythic Plus. Damaging the target for a large amount of holy damage and resonating half of that amount to up to 4 nearby enemies. The 4 set then grants, where Wrathful Sanction, that buff from the 2 set, grants you Echoes of Wrath. Wrathful Sanction grants you Echoes of Wrath, causing your next Templar's Verdict or Divine Storm to deal damage a second time at 25% effectiveness. That is your Divine Storm here, or in single target, the other spell that you had in that place instead. And that's it, guys. You know how to play Retribution Paladin in Season 4 of Dragonflight. If you need any more help, what I would suggest to do is joining my Discord, because we've got a really beginner-friendly community in there who really are there to help and enjoy helping other players. I also have something called a WoW Compendium I've built that you can get in my Discord. It's a completely free ebook style sort of thing that I've built that shows you other discords to find guilds. If you're into PvP, it shows you, I've written guides in there on how to log and how to sim your character and things like that, which is for analysing how you do in combat and your gear and things like that. That's all in the Discord as well as some other really useful guides and add-on collections that I've put guides for in there. And again, if you do want some extra help, please do, of course, feel free to join my... I say feel free, but actually you've got to pay for it. Feel free to join my Patreon, where you can get a load of behind-the-scenes content and also a private channel in Discord, and I can help you with any rotational issues you may have, etc. If you're looking for other Season 4 guides, click here. This is the playlist for all PvE, Mythic Plus and Raid specializations this season. I am covering them all, and I will actually be doing PvP and dungeon guides as well, should you need them. They're all on my channel. Nevertheless, good luck and have fun being a Retribution Paladin. It's a really great spec this season.